What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gucci Turban podcast. I'm your host, Nimesh Patel, with my host, Asif Mansoor. Today, we're talking to Shomi Patwary, a Bangladeshi-American music video director slash computer engineer slash all-around awesome dude. Check it out. You're going to love it.
Gucci Turban.
Gucci Turban.
Gucci Turban.
Gucci Turban.
Gucci Turban.
All right, it's time for the Gucci Turban tradition of the dad joke of the day. Again, this is from Reddit, our dad jokes from user Jonathan Wickers. Why did the Mexican take anti-anxiety medication?
Why?
For Hispanic attacks. That's fucking good. It's terrible.
It's good. Is it racist? I don't even know.
I don't know. I can't tell. I'm a professional comedian, but that is that's a pretty good one. That's the first one you
now
said.
Would be a good time to. Yeah, now would be a good time to really understand the difference between Hispanic and Latino.
What is the difference?
There is a difference. I don't know. Because I think Latino is Latin America and Hispanic is anybody that's from a Spanish-speaking country. But Latino is specifically Latin America.
Got it. Okay, that tracks. Trump calls them all illegals. Regardless.
Oh shit! I just Googled it and I was correct. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
It was a well-educated guess if you understand, just basic language.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people fucking don't.
Latin. Oh, so then when do you use the X? It's like Latin X.
Latin. Yeah, that's either when you're describing a Latinos or Latinas and you just want to get all of them, it's Latin X.
Got it.
Because Latinos is, because of the language, it's all, you're just talking about Latin men.
So where do trans Latin people fit in?
In the X, man.
Mm-hmm.
X gets everybody.
X is it, all-encompassing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because of the gender portion of Spanish.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Do you use the? Yeah, how will they just remove the genders from the things? I wonder why biblioteca is a gender is a female.
Female place?
Yeah.
Because reading books is for bitches. That's why.
We're keeping that in. That's staying in. Education is gay.
Yeah, la escuela.
La escuela.
Learning makes you soft.
Stay ignorant. There's no story of the day for this episode. We had an awesome long talk with our boy Shomi Patwary, director, hip hop aficionado. Your mind will be blown. This is a brown guy that has touched some of the wildest hip hop videos, and most recently directed a Mark Ronson video. So, for all of you that are watching that are thinking, man, a brown kid could never do hip hop well, you're wrong. This is the guy that's doing it right now.
Gucci Turban.
Yo.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, dude? How are you?
Good, I'm good.
Show me, this is my boy Asif.
Hey, what's up, Asif?
Asif, show
Nice
me.
to meet you, man.
Yeah, we're just going to talk about your background, who you are. I don't know a lot of other brown music directors that have done the wild shit that you've done. Yeah. So it's just cool to meet different artists doing different shit.
For sure.
I first read about you on Brown Girl magazine. I was like, I got to talk to this dude somehow. And they had profiled me, so we had that in common. So I was like, let me holler at your boy. So what's happening,
I'm assuming
man?
also you're from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So even if you add that layer to it, it's even more rare.
Oh, yeah, dude. It's pretty intense, man. Like, I think my parents just realized what I do.
So Shomi, for those of you who are watching, Shomi is a critically acclaimed music video director working, I primarily in the hip hop space, from what I understand. If I misunderstand that, I'm sure you'll let us know.
No, it's primarily hip hop. That's like, I do a lot more commercial stuff now, but my roots are in hip hop for sure. And for a while, it's been hip hop, and want to continue to do hip hop. Like, the commercial stuff pays the bills, but hip hop is what I enjoy.
So you're from Virginia.
Virginia Beach.
Bengali by birth.
Yes, I moved to Virginia when I was 8 years old, and that was 1990. But it was pretty crazy, man. Like growing up in Bangladesh, like I have some memories, but most of it was like really seeing America through television, watching these TV shows and stuff, and like having this certain idea of what America was. And in 1990, when I moved, it lived up to the expectation for like 6 months. And it was like a rude awakening when we were moving to New York. 1990 era New York is like completely different New York than now. Like,
right,
dude, like we moved into this 1-bedroom apartment with another family subletting. I remember my parents were like, "Oh yeah, there's gonna be this landlord lady. She's gonna ask who y'all are. Just tell her like your relatives visiting." So every time I would go to school and come back, this lady like, "You guys been visiting for a while. What's going on?"
Your parents were not allowed to have kids?
Yeah, no, it was just because like we were subletting and we weren't supposed to sublet.
Oh shit! Okay, I got it.
Yeah. We weren't supposed to sublet, so we were. We kept telling the tenant that we just come visiting our cousins or whatever, right? But we were living with this other family that we didn't know. I mean, they were Bengali, but we didn't know them like that. It was just like some, I don't know how my parents found them, but yeah, they were cool. But like, my entire idea of what I thought America was watching these TV shows completely shifted. It was like a reality check. I was like, wait a minute. We just left Bangladesh where we had this like big old house and my dad was doing something. Now my dad is working at McDonald's and he's a candy man too. Like he was working at this candy shop and, I was too young to realize like what he did was such a sacrifice. But at the same time, I never thought, I'd see my dad like, do that, and I got so much respect for him now. But when I was younger, like growing up, as I was seeing him go through odd jobs, I'll be real, I'm not gonna front, I was like kind of ashamed from it because it was such a crazy combination of being around other cousins that got there earlier and their parents were already doctors and established. So I kind of felt like an outcast, and and it was crazy because my cousins were actually super nice. They never flaunted any of that. So when I go back to like talking about the first 6 months, seemed like, it is what I saw on TV, if not better, because those first 6 months, we lived with my uncle who sponsored us, and he was a radiologist, like came here in the 70s. So like,
you living at Kings?
Yeah, dude. Like, had jet skis in the backyard, a 3-story home in Virginia Beach, modern Japanese aesthetic. My uncle had great taste. So like, this dope crib, like brand new Mercedes convertible, and like, all the video games, everything. So I'm like, oh shit, America's dope. Like this is exactly what I expected. And then boom, they're like, you guys got to like figure this out. So went to live in Brooklyn, same neighborhood as Biggie's. And shit was fucking rough, man. It was rough. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was like a Ghostface record song. Like it was like that one record, All I Got Is You. Like talking about eating cereal with the water shit. Like I lived that, dude. And I never thought I would. And looking back at it, I am proud of going through all that shit because it really like I got PTSD from it to a point where my brother was joking around like, "Yo, you got so much PTSD from like being broke." Around the era that I think that's why you went so hard, like no matter what it is that you pursued. So that's a little bit of a background.
That's nuts, man. I didn't realize that that was your story, that you were living like a Ghostface song. You went from You went from seeing like Three's Company on TV to living like Perfect Strangers, kind of.
Yo, exactly. It was nuts, man. I was like, oh shit, this is real. Like, yo.
What did your dad do in Bangladesh? What are your parents?
He was a banker. You know, like I remember I had some guy that was like a kind of like a security guard that would walk me to school. Like I went to, you know, everybody in Bangladesh pretty much, if you're, you know, there's no middle class really. You're either well-to-do or you're doing bad, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So we were pretty well-to-do. Yeah, you know, we had like everybody else, like you had maids, you had some guy that walked you to school every day, all that shit, you know? And so you see that, and then you're hitting a public school in New York that doesn't even have a name. It's like a number, right? It's like, oh shit. But you know what? Like that, man, I needed that early on in my life because it was the kind of awakening I needed. I was 8, because I swear, dude, if I was in Bangladesh, I would probably be a complete like spoiled bastard, because I was at that age. Yeah. I was a bad kid, dude. I was like, you know, now I kind of know what it is like when you're like, I don't want it to come out wrong, but like white folks that grow up in America that have that sort of like, this is my land mentality, you kind of have that when you're there too. It's like, yo, I could do whatever the fuck I want, you know? Like, my dad is, like, well-to-do. Like, I would talk back to the teachers. I was a bad kid, dude. Right. You know what I'm saying? I needed this shit. Like, I needed to be punished. And, like...
Everyone needs to be humbled, bro. That's
dude. I got humbled early at 8. You know? Like, it was a crazy era, dude. I remember just landing, went to my cousin's crib, dope-ass crib. We're jumping up and down on the bed. Like, I would see these cousins when they would visit Bangladesh. It was always fun because... I know, like, my uncle would, like, bring the Hot Wheels and all this candy and all this stuff, so I'd always look forward to that, you know, like, them coming over to Bangladesh, like, oh, I can't wait, my uncle's going to bring me, like, Snickers and all this stuff that you can't really get, you know, not in the 90s, at least, you know, shit wasn't as, like, you know, accessible, so it was always exciting. So then to move to America and have that 24/7 was like, oh, man, I remember, like, it's a crazy era coming out of, like, the late 80s. Remember, all my cousins were like jumping up and down singing Billy Joel, "We Didn't Start the Fire." Not realizing what the fuck he was talking about, you know? We were all just singing along. And it's probably a bad song now looking back at it. But I love that song back then, man, because these memories as a child, you know?
Yeah, of course. So, and then you moved to New York when you were 8.
Yeah.
Or did you move after? So you spent 6 months in Virginia Beach, then?
We spent 6 months in Virginia Beach and almost a year in New York. And my dad was struggling. He had $200 left. And I remember, dude, I got bitten by, like, some rats or some shit and, like, had to go to the hospital to get some shots.
Oh, shit.
I was like, dude, I'm living in hell right now. The hell did you guys bring me into? I was, like, upset at my parents. I'm like, what is this? Like, yo, I thought we were coming to America. This is not America, you know? And but then my uncle came to visit. And he's like, oh, shit, you guys can't live like this. Like, it's pretty bad. So he somehow got my parents, my dad, a job as like some kind of delivery tech dude or something. A much better paying job. It wasn't like the most amazing job, but it was much better. And which added another layer to my life because then we moved back to Virginia again. And we lived in my uncle's townhouse. And now if you're living in the projects and all of a sudden you come living in a townhouse, that's a huge upgrade.
Right, of course.
But then you're not still realizing, like, yo, you're still in the hood. I didn't realize I was living in the hood. I thought this was a huge improvement. And I think it also built up who I was because then I grew up with, like, mostly, like, having a bunch of black kids as friends in my neighborhood. You know, a few white folks that were, you know, like, not so well-to-do. So, like, but I didn't realize that we were living in the hood because what I thought was the hood was so extreme living in New York that coming to the suburbs in Virginia Beach and seeing that shit was like, oh man, this is much better, dude. Right. You know? It wasn't until high school I started realizing like, oh shit, like we're fucking broke.
That's the funniest realization when you realize, wait, most people 4 people don't live in a 1-bedroom, you know, and share one bed.
Yeah.
You know, like that is a wild time. You're like, oh shit, I guess this is not how you're supposed to live. But it doesn't hit you as like an unnormal way to live until you realize, you go to your friend Jimmy's house. Like,
Exactly.
oh shit, you got 3 bedrooms? Like,
oh shit, you got a garage? What the fuck is this? I thought this is like, like, so then when you would like pull up to these, like, the late 90s was funny because there was an era where like people that started coming up, the newly rich people started getting these McMansions, and when you started going to visit your friends at these McMansions, like, oh fuck, this is living large, you know what I'm saying? Living like the big timers and shit that you see in the rap videos. And it was so funny, because like I was like, now looking back at it, I'm like, damn, man, I'm proud of like how I grew up because it built all these layers to who I was and made me realize certain things for what they were early on. But at the time, like, as a high school kid, I was kind of like, it was a weird phase for me because my dad was in this transitional phase of his career because he actually, by the time I was in high school, my dad became a CPA, was actually doing well, but he was a super frugal dude. Like, he was driving the same Toyota Camry forever. I feel like that's a Brown thing, no matter how much money you make. You're
good to know you're a Camry guy and not an Accord guy, Me and Accord people don't get along.
Oh, shit.
I'm kidding.
No, it was funny because, so I'm like, I know my dad has a pretty good job, but, like, he was still hustling on the side. He was delivering pizzas. So we'd always have all these pizzas at the crib, and my friends, it's so fucked up, man. I know now it seems like, damn, I was still, like, lost clearly because you're under the pressure of high school and you're, growing up in Virginia Beach especially, like, you're watching, like, all these TV shows that say, oh, this is, like, the American dream. This is how you're supposed to live, right? So, like, I was ashamed that my dad was delivering pizzas. So I would literally schedule my friends to come over after my dad would leave to go to work. And looking back at it, I was like, man, that's fucked up. Like, my dad really fucking worked his ass off to provide for us. I didn't realize he was still working at Pizza Hut and he was still a CPA because, at the time when you're running your own business, you didn't really have health insurance. So he would work at Pizza Hut, still have that health insurance, right? But I was ashamed, dude. Like, I'm going to just straight up come clean. I was ashamed of it at the time as a kid because you had all your other high school friends that, had, like, parents that did, like, pretty well. And so, like, I was like, oh, man, fuck. If my friends come over too early and they see, like, there's a Pizza Hut sign on my dad's Camry, I'm fucked. They're going to tell everybody my dad's the delivery man, Looking back at it now, I'm like, fuck, man, my dad really fucking did a lot for us. Like, he made a lot of fucking sacrifices.
It's weird that, like, growing up, you don't learn the dignity in, like, every job. Like, at the end of the day, this is a guy or a woman that's, like, doing everything they can to make sure that you have clothes on your back, you're going to school, your teeth are not falling out, you're doing what you're supposed to do.
My dad got
is never articulated.
Yeah, I mean, he got, like, honestly, dude, like, other than that one memory of, like, at 8, being 8, like, having to eat shit with water, after that, like, again, I was confused. I didn't know what class I belonged to, none of that, like, because at the same time, like, my dad made sure I had a tutor, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have the freshest Jordans, but, like, he got me a tutor. I remember getting joked, like, even in elementary school, like, I had some LA Gears or some shit that looked like the fucking Jordans, and I remember this kid, Aaron Steffens, I'll never forget his fucking name. He's like, oh, we got some fucking Bobos. And Aaron Steffens is this white kid that, like, had these fresh pair of Jordans. I didn't know, like, he came from, like, a single family, so maybe his dad was, like, hooking him up with some Jordans and the latest gear and shit, while my dad was like, I'm going to save up for your fucking tutoring, you know what I'm saying? But, like, I never understood the way my dad did things, because I'm like, why is he being frugal about this, but not frugal about that? Stacked up with fucking SAT books and tutors, spending all that money on this shit, but not, like, always buying me, like, other stuff that, I wanted as a kid, to be cool. But it all makes sense now,
That hindsight of humility is very important. That's the thing that's missing in, I guess, like, white America is just the being humbled early. Like, every white kid should be slapped when they're born just to be like, yo, man, none of this shit is given, dog.
Fuck no, dude, because that's when you realize, like, man, like I said, I knew that experience of what it is to be that, growing up all white American by having to be growing up in your own country when you have that.
Right.
You think you fucking run everything. You think you can do whatever the fuck you want. Seriously. And we weren't, like, filthy rich, but even just being in your own space and place that you think this is yours, like, I could see it. It's not good. I could see why a lot of people would think that way. You know what I'm saying? why you think you can get away with shit and not be able to empathize. And then I'm blessed I got hit with those struggles. You know, like I'm blessed that I grew up in a neighborhood where, you know, my brother tweeted about it the other day. I was like, yo, man, I'll never forget when one of my homeboys would just stay over the weekend because his mom was on a fucking crack bench. Jesus. And he didn't want to talk about that shit, you know, like he would stay over. I didn't understand a lot of things, you know, it's all like coming back now. And like, I think the last 10 years as I've grown as a human being did a lot of like reflection, like going back to the environment I grew up in, you know, and even the anti-blackness I saw within the community, you know, within the Bengali community, within the Indian community, like how it was like, yo, so many folks I knew had businesses where y'all are surviving because of your black customers. Right. Yet that's not who you want to be. Yeah. Right. And I think now is a more important time to really discuss that. And it was funny because I was watching Hassan Minaj's thing on Netflix. He's like, y'all want to like, you know, appreciate all the good shit from the culture. Right. But then, oh man, I'm not black. I'm not one of them. I can't empathize. You know, like always, yeah, sorry, I'm like going all over the place, man. I got a lot of emotion and thoughts lately.
Let them out.
Things. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, half the reason I want to talk to you is because I know that, you know, your affinity for hip hop is not based like it's not new. It's from who you were and how you grew up, and like 100%. The fact that you grew up in Biggie's neighborhood in the '90s. I'm sure it's a possibility that you saw him rapping on a street corner at some point.
Who knows, dude? It could have been a possibility. You know what I'm saying? Like so many things. Who knows who I ran into back then? You know what I'm saying? But it was funny because that's when I realized, like, damn, man, maybe this is not the country I belong in because, you know, I was 8, barely knew how to speak English. The first kid that friended me was this black kid, and the first kid that fucking bullied me was this white kid who was joking me because I didn't know how to speak English properly. And it was crazy. I was like, all these allies you didn't realize were being developed. Not to say like, yo, dude, I'm like anti-white. Like, dude, I have friends of every race, and not by intention, just based on the industry and just where I grew up, growing up in Virginia Beach, right? Like, it's a very unique experience because that's also, I think, a different thing. Like, racism in Virginia is different than racism in New York. Like, the kind of racism you experience in Virginia is very much in your face. Nobody's going to hide it. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's in plain sight. Like, you know the type of people that aren't fucking with you. Right. You know, we'll call you a poo straight to your face. Right. Growing up, I hated the poo fucking character, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting.
Because everybody would call me that. And I'm like, yo, that's not my name, bro. Like, you know? Like, the kind of racism you experienced, you didn't even realize it was racist. You just thought it was annoying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't know what racism is when you're a kid.
9/11 hit almost. Because then it was another level. I'll be honest, man. I think after 9/11, there were a lot of brown kids that really had to like say, oh shit, we're no longer the model minority.
Oh, yeah.
It was a fucking crazy, I was a crazy reality check, man. I was in college. I remember, dude, all of a sudden, you're not going to be able to blend in with these other folks now that you live in a better neighborhood or whatever, you know? Because my dad eventually did move into like a nice upper-class suburban neighborhood. I think it was the year 2000. I remember my parents bought their dream home at the time. And, you know, you're like, oh, shit. You know, like, I just left the hood. My brother was in denial. My brother was like, kind of like, oh, this is not me. I don't belong in these fucking suburban streets. These kids are fucking weird, you know? Because we grew up in the hood and we grew up with like certain type of friends. Whether it be black or white, it was a different mentality. You were poor, you know? Yeah. And now there's this other new layer added. And I'm in college now. My parents didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life, but just said, just fucking go to the safe route. Studied computer science, you know? It was an interesting year because growing up in Virginia, like black, white, Asian, whatever, everybody really skateboarded. It wasn't like a race thing. Right? We all grew up skateboarding. And I think that speaks to part of my origin too, because it was like, grew up listening to Wu-Tang, Rage Against the Machine, and skateboarding. I was like, I know it sounds like a fucking Urban Outfitters commercial now, but that's what it was growing up in Virginia Beach. It's like, it didn't matter what your race was. Everybody just grew up a certain way, you know? And I say that to say that that's what made Pharrell Pharrell. And he played a huge role in my life in the 2000s because all these hit songs were coming out. I was in college. Lap Dance came out by NERD. All these big hit songs by Jay-Z and all these folks were coming out around that time. I'm like, who the fuck is this dude?
Right.
Like,
Clips
production.
Clips was 2008.
2002. 2001. I was in college, and I was like, oh, fuck, what the hell is this? I heard Grindin' for the first time. Is this crazy, ominous, minimal beat. Found out these guys are from my hometown, not, of Virginia Beach, Virginia. They went to this, like, high school that was, like, a rival high school, Salem High School. I was like, oh, fuck, I gotta do something else with my life because all these cool kids are coming out of my hometown. Like, I can't be this dude working at Microsoft. So my brain just went into like overdrive. I said, okay, I got to balance college life, graduate, but this is not what I want to do. I was always like kind of a creative dude. Like me and my cousins were always like wanting to make beats and stuff, like we always wanted to make music, but we knew that wasn't like a real viable option to make a living. So like we always had fun, like getting on Fruity Loops and making beats for fun. And we were like emulating Pharrell and Timbaland, two of the kings from my hometown, like we emulated that sound. We knew what the Virginia Beach sound was, really molded us. But I was stuck in, like, in a way it was luck. My parents didn't want me to go way out of town and go to like a college out of town because they were still like, shit, like we don't want this dude like doing some fucked up shit, like going out of town. My parents were very protective and sheltering. So like I went to ODU, which like was the school you went to, like, you want to do computer science or whatever, and it was the closest thing. So like went to a decent college, but I don't have any memory of like my college life because so much was invested into doing what I do now. So like kind of like grew up in this era where I wanted to make music. I knew whatever I want to do, it just had to be creative. I didn't want to like code away all day. I did that coding shit because like I was, like I said, again, it was weird growing up. I didn't have like all the Jordans, but my parents bought me a Pentium processor computer like before anybody else had one. Even in the hood, like I was the kid that had the dopest computer, the fastest fucking computer loaded with Encarta 95, So like I had access to that. So like I would just like would be that kid that was on the internet early, So I like was very internet savvy early on, understood how to code, understood how to make websites. Little did I know that was going to be something unique I could offer to the Clips and Pharrell. Oh, shit. So that's where it all really happened, dude. Like, I found a local rapper that was connected to another rapper that was then finally connected to Pharrell. And I had to, like, say, yo, man, like, let me do y'all's mixtape covers for free, all that, like, to these local rappers. I was doing mixtape covers. I was letting them use my CD burner at the crib to, like, burn their mixtape. We turned my bedroom into a record label, and it was called Elusive Media Records.
Elusive?
Yeah. The company's still Elusive Media, but it was originally Elusive Records or Elusive Entertainment. We thought we were going to be, like, this, like, I was trying to be a young Puff, man, like, trying to, like, create this record label. I had this crazy dream, like, yo, we're going to, like, be this fucking label and we're going to, like, team up with the Neptunes and all this stuff.
Just sell music at the trunk of your car.
Yeah, no, I really did that, Like, I really, like, burned CDs. I remember when Get Rich or Die Trying came out, I made 50 copies and we were selling that shit on campus because, I knew how to download it off of Kazaa or whatever they had back then, early on, before everybody else was hip to it. I would download it, burn it, and bootleg it, dude. So, like, that's how I kind of got into the mixtape shit, like, with the local mixtape DJs, because I was able to burn instrumentals and CDs. So I was starting to burn instrumentals. Pusha found out, said, yo, we're having problems with our label. Can you burn these instrumentals that we want to rap on? So we got it for cheap. Volume 1 was all instrumentals that I burned and put on CD, and they would then be in the studio rapping to. And then they're like, by the way, Shomi, do you know how to make a mixtape cover? I really didn't, but I kind of looked it up.
You got to say yes.
Learned that shit overnight. Designed their first mixtape cover,
Yeah.
Overnight. I'm still in college, and I'm trying to tell these kids, like, yeah, I'm working with the Neptunes now, working with the Clips, working with this new artist they signed, Family, and all the college kids are like, bullshit, dude. You guys are fucking weirdos, like making shit up, like, whatever. So like, I didn't really connect with other college kids, Yeah. Me and my best friend, I'm leaving somebody out. My best friend growing up is this kid, Philip Lee, Chinese American, and very similar mentality. Like, we were the real life Harold and Kumar. And Harold and Kumar came out right when we were in college. Everybody called us that.
Of course,
we were looked at as the Asian kids that didn't follow the rules. We were skipping class, doing bad shit, hanging out with other. So they're like, oh, that's Harold and Kumar over there, Like, we weren't getting high all the time or shit like that, but we were like definitely outcast and didn't feel like we belonged. So like, that movie played a huge role too. I was like, oh shit, finally some representation of kids like me that don't follow the rules. Right. So it was a big deal for me. Also built up who I was.
Did you have a lot of music in your house as a Bangla person? Is that what pushed you to music?
Oh yeah, dude. Like, so all my cousins were much older than me. Like, the ones that I really looked up to were like almost like a decade older than me. So I had cousins that would put me onto old school hip hop. Then I had cousins that would put me onto New Order and The Cure. So like, I was super blessed. I think it also played a role in who I was. Like, I loved listening to like Gangstar and Jerry with the Damager, all this stuff. But then at the same time, I was this kid in high school when nobody had heard of Joy Division. I was listening to Joy Division and New Order. So like, I was some fucking kid that existed before the Pitchfork era that kind of had this taste early on, and I was putting my other friends onto that shit, So like, I really did have a unique experience. Some kid growing up in the hood listening to Joy Division and still like being able to bump Wu-Tang and shit, Like, crazy life, man. I think it really molded my visuals too, So like, music just played a huge role, man. Like, and then like, I remember my cousins, as they got older, they moved out. They moved in with these Bulgarian roommates that put them onto the Prodigy like super early. So they were starting to listen to like techno music, like in 94, 95, before electronica wave took over in the late 90s. I was hip to that shit. My cousins had their little raves and shit they would throw, with their roommates in their basement, dude. I swear, dude, my life, as weird and fucked up it was incredible, man, growing up, like having these cousins that all had these various tastes. I'll never forget the story. My cousin saying, yo, man, we were backstage with the Oasis, and the brothers were arguing, and they were talking about how much one of them hates techno and the other one's like fucking with like cool with techno. And these like little stories and bits and pieces really like built up my imagination, whether if that story was ever true or not, I don't know, but like, it really made me who I am, because I was blessed, like, to be growing up in an era where I was skateboarding, I was listening to Wu-Tang, listening to Joy Division, like, all these mix-up of things gave me so much influence, so much color into my shit that it started coming out in the heart,
Yeah. Why did you gravitate towards hip-hop? Like, just because
of the grittiness, dude. Like, it was both. Like, I remember the shiny era suit. At first, I didn't really fuck with, like, all the shit Diddy was putting out. Right. I remember. I'm not going to front like I was listening to Biggie when everybody was listening to Biggie. I was listening to Jay with the Damager. I was, like, a really straight-up backpacker kid at that time when, like, the bad boy era was all over. I was gravitating more towards Tupac because I liked more of the conscious rap, and Tupac kind of represented both, like, but it wasn't until the Victory video came out.
Oh, what a wild video.
Yo, when I saw that video, I was like, fuck, let me go listen to this No Way Out album that everybody's talking about, Or no, what was that album? The first Puff album that had Victory, had all the classic records on it.
P. Diddy, no, I don't want to say
P. Diddy and the Family. What
did
No
Way Out? P. Diddy and the Family, yeah.
Puff Diddy and the Family, right? Yeah.
So I was a late bloomer to that album. It wasn't until Victory came out, because I already liked Busta Rhymes because of Leaders of the New School and all the stuff he had going, because Busta represented. But Busta Rhymes bridged the gap to me enjoying what that shiny suit era was. So then all of a sudden I was this kid that was like, oh shit, this shit is hard. Biggie's fucking hard. He had already died at that point. I'm not gonna lie. But then I started appreciating and going back to the catalog. And I'm like, dude, this is the greatest fucking rapper ever. Because then I started like getting into like how clever he was with the lyrics, you know? And so now, okay, I can enjoy both type of rap. So now I can enjoy the more like the shiny suit era rap and you know, in DMX, all this was coming out now. I felt like 99 was probably the greatest fucking era of hip hop because of that to me, because it mixed both. It had like this gritty vibe, but then you had Cameron coming out, which you saw a little bit of the Jiggy era raps. And then that's what to me then made Jay-Z the greatest, because he was able to embrace all those sounds and looks and became the greatest fucking rapper because of that. So,
I never really put that together, that Jay-Z kind of evolved with the eras that he was in. Like 96, Reasonable Doubt was him like being like, I'm also like Biggie, I sold drugs.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, Jay-Z was always able to embrace shit early too, you know?
Yeah.
Like when Juvenile's Ha came out, he wasn't like, fuck the South. He did the remix to Ha.
Yeah.
You know? So like, yeah, dude, like I loved just growing up listening to hip hop just because of, to some aspects I could relate, because like when Ghostface's All That I Got Was You came out, I shed a tear. I was like, oh man, that's me. When I was 8. I heard that album.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude! I was like, yo, I went through that. You know?
Yeah.
And then the Jiggy era of rap made me want to get a fucking Benz and made me want to get a Lexus.
Yeah.
So it was both. Like Jiggy era rap said, oh shit, that's what they're rapping about. Like my neighbor, I remember one of my neighbors was probably like the biggest dope dealer in the neighborhood. But we all looked up to him because he had this brand new Infiniti and he had the Averex jacket and the Wallabies. I was like, yo, that dude looks like a fucking rapper. He looks like one of the Wu-Tang Clan members. Right. So like we looked up to that dude. Little did I know he was like the fucking neighborhood kingpin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So shit was weird, man. Like really weird growing up, man. Like I really kind of I lived in music. Like my life was that. My cousins were DJing, breaking the rules, like just sneaking out at night and DJing these raves. And Chad Hugo from the Neptunes would be at those raves DJing with them. Like that's Chad Hugo used to DJ house music too. And so like, I don't know, like, man, when it came to the subcultures, I got to really live all that, you know?
Uh-huh.
And so, like, music was just a big part of whatever I did. So that's why, I knew maybe I wasn't going to make it in hip-hop as a producer, but I knew that, like, I wanted to be in the industry.
Yeah. So you're in college. You know, I'm from Virginia, Ain't Shit to Do But Cook comes out, and you're like, that's
Dude,
that's
when
who
that fucking song came out, you heard Virginia through the speakers.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to get with these dudes. Didn't think it was a possibility, but I was like, I gotta get with these cats, no matter how. Like, so what I did is I joined the NERD forum and the Star Trek forum, and so before social media, we all used to go into forums.
Right.
It's kind of like Reddit, right?
Yeah.
But like NERD would have their own like internet forum where we'd all just have these general discussion and topics. It was kind of like Reddit, so we joined these forums. It was like the really hardcore fans that would all get there. Same thing with Star Trek. They had these forums. And so through that forum, I would meet these guys that actually all became somebody later on. Like Janelle Monáe would be on the Star Trek forum. Drake would be on the Star Trek forum. Tyler, the Creator, would be on the Star Trek forum. Diplo would be on the Star Trek forum. And this kid, DJ Benzi. So when I did the Star Trek stuff, I became a college rep for Star Trek when I was in college. This kid, this dude, Mick Moreno, who eventually became an A&R at Star Trek. I think he was an A&R, but I knew he was Pharrell's assistant for sure. Mm-hmm. He made me a Star Trek rep, and I had this so back in the days before this social media era of blue checks, you had this thing called administrator. So I was an admin now on the Star Trek forum. So when I was an admin, I was able to moderate shit. I was able to delete shit. I had power, basically. And I took advantage of that because there was this it wasn't a blue check, but it was some sort of mark, like a star. or something that you would have next to your name, so
Yeah,
the kids
yeah.
would respect you. And a lot of the kids, so Drake saw that, like, oh, Shomi's a moderator. So Drake would like post his music, and it was over like Timbaland and Pharrell beats. So Drake hit me up, messaged me on MySpace, was like, yo, man, I don't have a manager right now, but I really fuck with Star Trek. Really love the clips, ironically, now looking back at it.
Yeah.
Love Pusha T, my favorite rapper. How can I get connected to them? I was like, well, my boy Nicholas F. is somebody you should connect with. You should come down to Virginia Beach and visit us. And I'll connect you with this other dude named Knots. And so there's another guy named Knots who's doing production for MOP and Busta Rhymes and more of the grittier hip-hop artists. Legendary now, like worked with G-Unit, worked with Jay Dilla, everybody. So I connected with Knots too around that time when I connected with the Neptunes. So I knew I couldn't directly hook him up with the Neptunes because Drake at the time was not ready.
Yeah.
I know this sounds fucking crazy, but it really happened. So I connected him with this kid, Nicholas F., and everybody on the Star Trek forum, I would kind of manage Nicholas F., but Nicholas F. was this artist that I represented online almost. Like I would post all his new shit.
Mm-hmm.
I would like film us in the studio and put that up. Like this was not a YouTube era. You had to like videotape something, figure out what kind of capture card you needed to have to capture it, and then you need to have hosting. So I used my college hosting because we had like super fast internet accounts that we all got access to. So ODU probably doesn't realize this. I used their hosting to host mixtapes.
Nice.
Host all this stuff. Like this is some really crazy shit. Now thinking back at it, like I used to host all these instrumentals, all the artwork, all the videos. So we had our little elusive record label website that would have all the videos that we would have in the Star Trek studio. So I became this kid that had all this access, and it just built up clout before clout was a thing on the internet, right?
Right.
Like I was building up some sort of rep to like, even though I only had met like Pharrell twice at that moment, people thought like I was Pharrell's best friend.
Right.
Just because I was so close to the studio. I would see the Pusha T's and the Malices and like all the other artists they had signed all the time because they still stayed local. But Pharrell was traveling so much, I would literally be at Pharrell's house more than he was, right?
Uh-huh.
So there was this like idea on the internet that, oh man, Shomi is in, like that's our way in to Star Trek. Everybody wanted to get signed to Pharrell.
Mm-hmm.
Drake especially. So I was like, yo man, you gotta come down, meet my boy Nicholas F.
You mean Pharrell could have signed Drake, but you didn't think he was ready?
He wasn't, dude. He really wasn't. His style was a little different, man.
Yeah.
So then he met my boy. No, but it is funny. Now I kick myself looking back at it, looking at those messages. Because I remember Drake started following me on MySpace and I was like on his top 8.
Oh, shit.
And then I had a Russell Peters set. You know when MySpace would let you embed videos and shit?
Yeah.
Like, my embedded video was this Russell Peters set. And Russell Peters happened to be from Canada.
Uh-huh.
And then Drake left a comment. It's like, yo, you know Russell Peters? Yo, he's one of my favorite comedians. And Drake had this funny comment. He said, it was a night I'll never remember. I'm quoting him on this. He said, it was a night full of rich, hearty laughter. That's what Drake commented this fucking door. It was a night of rich, hearty laughter.
I can picture him saying that.
That's so Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. He's the most Canadian. That's another thing. He was the most Canadian dude you'd ever met. Such a nice kid, but super Canadian, and he loved Russell Peters. And so, like, when I saw that comment, I was like, oh, man, this kid's so innocent. And he left that comment. We started, becoming friends. I started connecting with people that I was starting to make connections through Star Trek connections.
Uh-huh.
And so Drake comes to Virginia, connects with my boy Nicholas F. They do a mixtape together that's starting to get a lot of buzz. Drake is starting to get a lot of buzz now on his own. So they do a record that I decide to get remixed. Drake sends me money and says, yo, I want to do a record with Pusha T and Malice. Pusha was like, I don't know about this kid. Even then. So Pusha skips out on the remix, but Malice is like, yo, he acts, right? He's on Degrassi? I was like, yeah. And Malice is like, oh, maybe he can teach my son a few things. I want to get him into acting. So Malice was cool with it. I give Malice the money. Malice gets on this remix for a song called Do What You Do. And then my boy Benzie is working with a guy named Diplo at the time who's not famous. He's part of this group called Holotronics. I know this sounds crazy. This is 2005 now, 2006. D Diplo is working with this kid, DJ Benzi. And Benzi does all these mashups. It was this mashup era. Everybody's like mixing shit up. So Benzi was like, yo, man, would you be able to give me access to the acapella for first we got it for cheap mixtape? I was like, yeah, I'll hit up Dan, the engineer. So this kid we used to call Dan the Man, he was their engineer, gave me the all acapellas. And then I asked Pusha, I was like, yo, I want to do this mixtape mashup thing where we're going to like mix up Jay Dilla and mix up like this kid Diplo that's coming out, Nick Catch Dubs, all these cool like underground DJs, Disco D, all these cool like kids coming out. What do you think? He's like, yeah, whatever. I'll give you the acapellas. I don't care. It's like, yo, could you give me some drops too? It's like, sure, whatever. Pusha T pulls up in his SL 500 to my mailbox.
My favorite car, yeah.
I have like this Handycam, Sony Handycam, and I film Pusha doing the drops, and then I export them into like WAV formats, so it's just the audio, and then it becomes like kind of a legit mixtape. Pusha listens to it, like, this mixtape's weird. I don't know about this shit. Rolling Stones ends up picking that mixtape that I did with Benzi and this other dude, Evil Empire, as top 5 mixtapes of the year.
Wow.
And Drake is now on that mixtape too. So,
shit.
So now Fader and all these people are getting into this thing. So he was the only guy that Nicholas and Drake were the only ones on that mixtape that really wasn't that famous that ended up on that mixtape. Now it's this era of mashups being a popular thing. I don't know if you guys remember that era where people were like mixing Grizzly Bear with Eclipse and all this stuff. And that mixtape was like that early on like mashup era where now all of a sudden the Pitchfork kids are like embracing the Clips. Clips now are at this weird time they're having label drama, but people are gravitating towards them. All these hipsters, we used to call them Clipsters. All these hipsters were like now into the Clips. Maybe I'm to thank for that.
Thank you. I love the Clips, man.
Yeah, so I'm now really close with the Clips. I'm close with Drake. Can't get I think I let Shay hear it. Shay from NERD hear it, like the Drake stuff. He's like, oh, this is cool. They kind of sleep on it. And so I'm like, sorry, man. Like I tried, you know? So, but him and Nicholas F. was helping writing some stuff. When I say ghostwrite, I think he helped him like write some hooks. I'm not saying he wrote his verses. Nick helped him kind of do that stuff. And so Nick and Drake are kind of doing their own thing. I'm deep into Star Trek world. Now they're like, yo, you need to come to New York. We're about to do a record with Kanye. Now they're in their 3rd album in. You know, I'm like the Clips' media guy unofficially. Now I'm starting to find out, like, at that point I've already graduated, have my own little studio that me and my best friend, Philip Lee, put together. So, again, going back into the Chinese-American dude I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Shit gets even crazier because this MTV special comes out about Pharrell, a show called When I Was 17. I don't know if you guys remember that. MTV had a show called
I remember
When I Was
that.
17. I'm watching it, see Pharrell's mom, and me and Phil, oh, shit, that's Miss Williams from 6th grade. She was our teacher.
Oh, shit.
So I'm starting to put all this shit together. I'm like, yo, she wasn't bullshitting. She was like real. She was like, yeah, my son's working with Rex and Effects. He did All I Want to Do Is Zoom to a Rum Shaker.
Rum Shaker, yeah.
We thought she was bullshitting in 6th grade. And then I tell Pharrell that story. He's like losing it. I'm like, yo, your mom was our 6th grade teacher, dude. It's meant to be.
That's fucking awesome, man.
Yo, so all this shit, I swear, dude. That's all I was like, when I tell people, like, my life is stranger than fiction, I have a whole entire, like, my version of the Wonder Years that I want to put together as a TV show.
Yeah.
Growing up in Virginia Beach. Yo, you can't make this shit up. So, like, it's led me to, like, now with the quarantine and everything, like, me and my other best friend, Devin, we wrote our first movie script, like, because of all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
I know I'm, like, talking away. I'm not even letting you guys talk, man.
Man, I'm fascinated by all this. We didn't even get into, like, how the hell did you go from, you know, making mixtape covers for Pharrell or for the Clips to directing Jaden's music videos.
Videos in general.
I never thought I was gonna be a music video director.
Right.
I thought I was gonna be a record label owner. So having no resources, especially being in Virginia Beach, the Clips was like, and Pharrell were like the only guys that were our doorway, right? So we were thinking we were going to be a media company now. At this point, after the mixtape covers and all that stuff, my best friend and I graduated. My parents were like, I don't know what you guys do, but I see you're making a little bit of money. I had saved up some money. I saved up like 10 grand just off of mixtape covers because I was doing every mixtape cover and flyer. And so did my friend Philip. So he saved up 10 grand. So me and Phil put up our 20 grand, got us a little studio, and all these kids that were looking up to us started coming to the studio. So like that studio attracted a lot of young talent who now are also doing big things, which is crazy. So it became like the hangout spot for the Clips as well and Shay. So like we're all buddies now, like we're all hanging out. So the Clips would always kick it. But my main introduction to the Clips was this guy, Doug Life, that I'm still really good friends with. Doug was the guy that grew up with NERD and like would take him to band practice and stuff like that when they were kids. You know, he's still best friends with them, but he's super behind the scenes. Right. So Doug was like really like the communication between me and Pharrell for a long time. So Doug made our new studio like his own little home, you know, like a little office. Our office, I didn't realize how big of a deal it was, but we had this multimedia office with like 7 rooms. It's like real estate was cheap. Commercial real estate in Virginia Beach is super cheap. It's not like New York. Something I could not do in New York. But I was able to do it with like 20 grand put together. And so now we're attracting a lot of local business because everybody wants that look that we were creating. And then MySpace was blowing up. So we were doing custom MySpace pages. So like we're using our like computer science skills, I guess, and connecting with the right guys. We were coding MySpace pages that didn't even look like MySpace anymore. So when we did Pharrell's page, it was this interactive like MySpace page with like this crazy flash stuff going on. So we were like, oh, I guess we're going to be like multimedia dudes that do hip hop stuff. So that was like our thing. So we attracted a lot of music producers, the Runners, and all these guys back in the days that were really big. So guys that were working with Rick Ross, T-Pain, all these guys, like that era, like Sean Kingston, all this stuff. Everybody was working with us. We did every other big MySpace page, and we had our name tagged onto it. So like one person would see and be impressed by that MySpace, they would hit us up. I remember I did Sean King's MySpace. Not Sean King, Sean Paul. Well, I did both. I did Sean King and Sean Paul's MySpace. But when I did Sean Paul's MySpace, we didn't even really know how much money we could charge because we didn't know there was this much money in the industry at the time.
Right.
I remember the manager is like, so how much you want? 7? Thinking he's in 700. Like, yeah, 700's cool. He wires us $7,000 for the MySpace page. I'm like, oh shit.
You gotta raise your rates.
Yeah, dude. So we started raising our prices. So we were doing everything. We weren't mastering anything, you know. We were always like doing a little bit of like video stuff. So we dabbled in some local music videos, and we were doing it for like this kid Nicholas F, who I said is like, you know, working with Drake now. So we were dabbling in everything. I don't think I really took music videos seriously till Skills. I don't know if you know about Mad Skills. He was like I think Russell Peters actually knows him really well. So I think he DJ'd for him. So Skills was with OK Player. So Skills was one of the first rappers ever to come out of Virginia Beach that officially got signed to like Atlantic Records in '96. He had a song called The Nod Factor. So he was an OG to us, and Skills started hanging out with us too, because Skills grew up with Pharrell and Timbaland and all these guys too. So Skills really became a good friend, and Skills was the one that said, yo, I got this album coming out, you know, with OK Player and Koch Records, independent shit, but like, would you guys want to do our video? I was like music video? I was like, yeah, dude, you guys are so talented, like, I trust you doing a video. I like what you're doing behind the scenes. I think if you put that same effort into a music video, it could be dope. I'm like, all right, man. We had no budget. We just finessed our way into getting a studio space for free because we're like name dropping all these folks. And then the record was featuring Freeway. So there's a song called Don't Act Like. So Skills had this record with Freeway. We shoot the video. And this is before YouTube. Or I think YouTube had just come out, but it wasn't like that big, right? It was like 1996 or not 96, right? 2006, 2007 era. YouTube is still kind of brewing. So we put the video on YouTube. It's getting some traction. But then he calls me up. It's like, yo, MTV Jams wants to make this jam of the week. This is when MTV was still kind of a thing. It's like, what? We shot this video on like a small digital video camera. This isn't film. Everything else on MTV at this time is Hype Williams and all this stuff.
Oh,
Lil X.
Yeah.
My shit is in the mix with that. I was like, no way. And I'm trying to tell my parents, our video's on MTV. They're like, well, they understand MTV. They're like, what? How? It's like, yeah. It's the Jam of the Week. This dude, Butterman, they used to work at MTV, was from Virginia too, so he showed that a lot of love. So now I'm like, whoa, like, we got a video on MTV. Maybe we do. We were always creatives. We were always visual thinkers, but not specific, like, I want to be a director. Like, that was one of the many goals. I have ADD, I think. I like to do everything. I want to make covers. I want to draw. I used to be an illustrator. I want to do everything, dude. If it's creative, I want to do it. Like, I just love being around music and creativity. Like, that's just my thing, And it's so far away from everything that my family and everybody else was doing. My only other cousin, who's the same age as me, also decided to take this path. He actually got to go to film school. So he went to Drexel University and was working for Lee Daniels.
Damn.
Yeah, so he was working for Lee Daniels. So he was legit, like, getting his way into the industry, too, through Lee Daniels meeting Spike Lee and all these folks. So I remember after the Skills video, the clips were like, yo, we got this record with Kanye. Come to New York. Let's shoot the behind the scenes. And I was shooting behind the scenes. I invited that cousin. He was like, oh, man, this stuff looks dope. Even the behind the scenes looks pretty dope. When their music video dropped, people were like, oh, this is cool. For some reason, the music video wasn't getting as much buzz as the behind the scenes I shot. I don't know why. Like, I shot it with the Best Buy camera. And the clips were like, yo, show me, like, the label budgets aren't as big anymore. We got, like, a few $100s. What would it take for you to do, like, a cool music video for us? So now I'm in this era now where I guess labels are now willing to trust, like, nobody directors that are just coming up, like guerrilla directors. I think I was part of that wave. It was Rick Cordero, me, these guys. It's this new wave. Rick Cordero had done a song, I think a video for Jay-Z that was like on his own, but it became like official. So like we were part of that new wave now of filmmakers that didn't come from a traditional film background or like a film industry background. And we were just kids out of Virginia. And that's how we were getting in. Like it was shooting behind the scenes, being behind the scenes, doing whatever it took. At first, we weren't even getting paid to do a lot of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that brings up a point of like having that privilege, though. I would say I was lucky. It wasn't like I had to pay the bills. So that brings up a more serious point. Having parents that weren't like, you're not making any money, but I still had a roof and didn't have to worry about getting kicked out of the crib or anything. Like they were letting me do whatever as long as I kept my grades up. That's all they care about, right? As long as my grades weren't falling, they're like, do whatever. We don't care. It's just a phase to them, right? It's like, this is a hobby. Yeah. So they were treating it as a hobby, but because it was a hobby, my parents didn't really expect that much money from it. They didn't care if I was making money or not. Right. But that came with a little bit of that privilege because now this is the year 2000s. My dad, we're living in an upper class neighborhood now. And I didn't realize how much of a privilege it was because I was able to tell the clips, yeah, man, whatever. I don't need to invoice you for this. So everybody got accustomed. It was like, if you were somebody big, I was like, yo, I'll do your shit for free. I remember DJ Drama's first mixtape website with the Drought mixtape, Lil Wayne. I did it for $25. I swear, dude. They PayPal'd me $25. And that was the mixtape that he used to sell, like, Lil Wayne's first mixtape that got huge. I didn't realize it was going to be that big. So we got our way in the door using, I don't know what kind of privilege that's called. I don't know if it's considered brown privilege because brown is, not every brown person is in the same social class status, But for me,
that's just money.
yeah. So for me, at this point, I felt like I still deserved it because I did. Until I was 18, I grew up in the hood. So now this is new money coming into my life, but I wasn't spoiled. I wasn't like, oh man, let me not hang out with certain people. I was still back in the hood. Like that's the other thing. Growing up in the hood, I wasn't scared to go to the hood and film videos. So that's the other thing that attracted a lot of people, my gritty style. This artist family that signed to Def Jam and Pharrell, we went to the craziest hood called Huntersville. Like he grew up in Huntersville. I was the only brown dude that probably went to Huntersville with a video camera and didn't give a shit. I was filming all this stuff. And so like I was able to capture all this grit because I had this, you know, like I wasn't scared to be in the hood. I knew what that was like. So that's the other thing. I was able to go places, even like craziest places in Richmond, Norfolk, Virginia, these places that most people wouldn't be in. So if I was doing a clips video, I did a video for Doorman, we shot that shit in the hood, like, or we would be out in the clubs. I was very comfortable in that gritty hip hop space because it wasn't shocking to me, you know? So I think that gave me a unique perspective. It was a mix of, and I guess that's what you call an outlier, right? It was an outlier case because I had just enough privilege not to be worried about getting kicked out for not making any money or whatever. Had that privilege. My parents set me up early on with computers and all this stuff. Had enough education. But then the outlier part that I did grow up in the hood and I did have like the understanding for hip hop culture and everything. So I was this kid now that rappers felt very comfortable with. Like I didn't come off like the rest of these guys at the record labels. So I started becoming this dude that became friends with these guys, you know? So a lot of the rappers and artists I would meet, we were friends before I would work. I remember when I met A$AP Ferg, we were just cool. We just appreciated hip hop and certain aesthetics, and I was putting him onto certain aesthetics on my end, you know, that we would appreciate before I even did a video for them, you know? So I was just somebody that got along with them for our appreciation in similar things. So it's those factors, you know, I think it takes a lot. And hard work came with that, of course. Like, yeah, there were days and nights when I would stay up all night to meet deadlines for videos and all that stuff. That's a given. Like, hard work is already a given, dude. You got to work hard. But there were certain things that definitely had to play a role. It wouldn't have probably worked out if I grew up in New York. It wouldn't have probably worked out if I went to film school.
Yeah.
Right? It worked out because I didn't go to film school. It allowed me to, like, approach all these hip-hop artists with shit that they weren't used to being asked for.
Right.
Like, rappers weren't getting everybody, they were getting demos. I was saying, let me make your website. You know, right. Completely different angle. I took such a unique angle, that's what got me in. So at that point, became more of a staple in the hip-hop stuff. And at that point, I graduated to videos now. So I did this video called Doorman for the clips. I'll never forget, Donald Glover tweeted it and said, yo, this shit is grimy. Like, that's what he said. He put it on his Tumblr page. I'm like, oh, shit. And I was a fan of Donald Glover at the time, too, because I was early onto his stuff. I was like, yo, Donald Glover fucks with this. And Donald Glover followed me on Twitter. I mean, he unfollowed me later on, but, you know, he followed me at that time. I was like, oh, man, this video shit could be something. And I always had an eye for it because I grew up idolizing Little X, Spike Jonze, and Mike Williams, and all those guys.
Right.
So, you know, like, the formula was in my head. I knew what I liked, and so I applied that. So the skills video, then it was the clips video, and then my boy Kenna, who was also signed to Pharrell, he was cool with Lupe Fiasco, and I remember there was an earthquake that happened in Haiti, and Kenna is this guy. He's like, he's, if you know, you know. Like, Kenna's one of these dudes. He's super connected, super like out there. I still work with him to this day, and he made Lupe and all these people climb Mount Kilimanjaro to raise water for Ethiopia, because his dad is from Ethiopia, so he's Ethiopian American, and so he's always doing something altruistic and just really inspiring. And so when the Haiti earthquake happened, he was like, yo, we got to do something for this to raise some money and awareness. So I did it for free. Lupe happened to be on that record. And so did this video for free. Lupe was like, this is dope. And Lupe was going through his label drama and said, yo, I love what you did for this video. I got a song called I'm Beamin' that Pharrell did. You know, that's your homie. So maybe you should do this video. So again, like, it's bouncing off of one name after another. Now I'm building up this portfolio. I already have a reputation that you could trust because of, like, the media stuff we did as Elusive Media. So back then when you'd go to the Elusive Media website, it was a bunch of, like, websites for a bunch of people and a lot of streetwear clothing. So that's the other aspect of it. I was very heavy into the streetwear side of things too. So working with BBC Ice Cream, Prohibit, all these, like, underground like streetwear stuff. So I was heavily involved in anything hip hop cultural.
Yeah.
And so bouncing from one talent to the next. So it's like I do the Lupe video, then I do the one for I'm Beamin', but I know they needed an idea immediately, and it was funny to do the Beamin' video. The reason I came up with an idea so fast is because I recycled an idea that was actually supposed to be for Freeway. I was still pretty young, you know, I was like not that young, but I was like 25 at the time, but I was still naive. So like in my head, I'm like, oh, I just did this video with Skills and Freeway. Freeway had a song with Jay-Z called Big Spender. He said, yo, show me, like, I'd love to get a treatment from you. I'm like, yeah, I got this, man. I'm going to get this treatment. So I write this treatment that was originally for Freeway with these kids that are going to, like, do a high school play. They're throwing money around, fake cardboard Ferraris, all this stuff. And for some reason, like, I felt like that could also work for Lupe.
Right.
So but I was naive. What the hell is Jay-Z going to pick me in a video? So Jay-Z clearly didn't pick me for that video for Freeway, but I had this treatment already ready. So then I did the Lupe video, and people started loving that, and it came to a point where I grew my area of Virginia Beach, my hometown. I was like, man, I can only do so much now, you know, because now I'm having to have Lupe come to Virginia, David Banner, Asher Roth, all these kids that were like really popular at the time. They were all flying out to meet me, to work with me, and I didn't think how crazy that was actually. Because I'm not from the, you know, they're not going to LA, they're not going to New York, they're coming to Virginia. I'm bringing these folks to Virginia Beach. So I knew, like, I was outgrowing my area, and it was gonna, like, limit me, you know? And things were starting to dry up too. The industry was going through this crazy era where they didn't know how to make money anymore either. So I knew I couldn't make money off of web design anymore, because we went from, like, out of our bedroom making websites for, like, no money to, like, 50,000 a website. To then all of a sudden Twitter and this new wave of social media comes where websites aren't needed anymore. Nobody cares. And so that business was gone. So now I was like, you know what? I'm just going to strictly focus on the music video stuff now. None of this website, flyer, graphic design stuff. So I left that alone and just strictly focused on music videos now. But I was in my hometown. I needed a way out, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then I'm getting older. My parents are now, like, pressuring me to get married too. You know what I'm saying? So, and you know what's funny, dude? Like, they were trying to, like, set me up, you know, the arranged marriage thing.
Of course. And
it was weird because I was one of those dudes. I was like, yeah, I'm not opposed to it because it worked for my parents, might work for me, whatever. Right. You know? Wasn't that rebellious about that. But it was funny that.
Seems convenient.
Yeah, right? I know it sounds crazy. Yeah. But I was like, if it worked for my parents, maybe it'll work for me. So I don't know how to describe this, but at the same time, I wasn't like, yo, I'm not going to just marry somebody I don't know. At the same time, I was like, I'm not that crazy. So I remember my parents were like, yo, we should all go to Bangladesh. Maybe you can meet a nice girl. So at this time, I'm trying to figure out my career. But my parents were like, you need something more steady if you're trying to get married and if you feel like you're ready. And this is shit that most kids don't want to talk about, you know, when they're around. Like, you don't want to bring up these types of things, but I'll be real with it, you know? I'm now kind of successful in this music video world, but now I'm thinking about this whole other life of trying to, like, settle down too. I'm like, yo, I'm getting old, man. So, and I entertained it. I was like, let me go to Bangladesh, see what's up. There's a thing called biodata, I'm sure you guys know about. So they make this biodata, and they're like meeting all these girls. I'm like, yo, I don't know, man. This is not for me. This is very strange. This whole thing is very strange. I'm like having to sell myself. I'm having to like tell, by the time at this point I took up a job at a university because it looked good on paper, but I was doing like media work for the university. So it looked good on paper. So my parents were like, oh, we'll just tell him he works at a university or something, you know? So I'm in Bangladesh, and what's crazy is my cousin sends me a photo. He's like, what do you think about this girl? I'm like, oh, she's cute. And my cousin's like, well, you guys are going to Cox's Bazaar, and I think they kind of live around that area. Maybe you should go meet her. I'm like, all right. Now I'm like actually excited to meet this person. The other stuff felt like homework. It's like shit you do just to say, yeah, whatever, get off my back. You know, to my parents. This person I'm actually excited to meet. And so I meet her. She sees this like camera around me. I got my 7D, and she keeps staring at it. And we just have a good conversation. And she's like, you know, I got to say something. Like for somebody that's from America, you're not arrogant at all, and you're talking to me in Bengali. Like you're really cool. I'd like to talk again or whatever. And I'm like, you're different too. Like you're like completely not talking about the same stuff that all these other girls I've met talk about. We're just talking about life stuff, you know? And I'll never forget this moment. This person like showed me their hand. Is like, I got to tell you something. There's a scar on my hand. Like when I was young, I burned it. And I'm not going to be, I'll be honest with you. Like, does this bother you? I'm like, no, not at all. Like, I don't care about this stuff. He's like, yeah, you know, my parents are afraid I'm never going to get married or whatever, or that this is going to be a thing. I'm like, dude, I don't care about that stuff. Like, that's not who I am as a person. And I swear, dude, like when I went back to see my parents, I straight up told my parents, this is the person I want to marry. Something in my heart just said, this is the person I want to marry. I'm in like love with this person, like just off of one conversation. And so my person, oh, so that means next week we could get, I was like, no, not next week. We're not getting married next week. Hell no. Because they're excited now. I'm like, no, I want to Skype with this person, get to know them. So we started Skyping for months. And then I'm like, yeah, I feel good. And then we did get married. This is the person I ended up getting married.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
You just gave every Bangla parent hope.
Huh?
Every Bangla parent now has hope that they're listening to this podcast. Oh, my kid can
It's
go
not
and
gonna work for everybody,
not be
dude.
a
I've got
doctor and
cousins that do
engineer,
that
but he's still going to get an arranged marriage.
Yeah,
We got it. We can do this.
Yeah, and to me, it didn't feel arranged because it's ultimately, it was easy. Again, it was easy because it was like, hey, you're like full of options. But like this one was kind of like different for me because it wasn't like I was forced into it or anything. It was somebody and it was somebody that like, you know, my parents were like, oh, she seems cool, like, you know, but it was somebody that I talked to all the time on Skype, and we kind of like got to know each other, and it's like, all right, cool, and I felt great. And now I'm like, wow, dude, like this person now is my life partner, but like even on a professional end, dude, took me to another level of my business, because this is a person that when I lost it all, I remember when I moved to New York finally, left my university job, she supported me 100% and said, yeah, like, let's take this job in New York. So I worked at this place called Karmaloop that Pharrell was kind of like a creative director at. And so they were starting this like YouTube channel, and so they wanted me on board. So I used all my industry connects at Karmaloop to like do videos for that video. I went back to my roots of like being able to do videos for free because I was already on salary. So I built up their channel because ASAP Rocky was just coming out. ASAP Ferg was just coming out. This is 2012. Me and my wife are new to the city. We're kind of scared. We're like, we don't know about this job. Is this going to last? Like, I'm scared. We kind of left our shelter because we were living with our parents for a little bit, you know, when we got married. And then we moved to Jackson Heights, you know, which I love, man. I loved living in Jackson Heights. So we moved to Jackson Heights. I was working at Karmaloop. It was the dream job because I was curating all the artists I wanted to work with. And I told him, yo, there's going to be this kid, ASAP Rocky. I'm telling y'all he's going to blow up. This kid, ASAP Ferg, he's going to blow up. Just listen to me. And it was my little brother. I left him out of the picture for a lot of this, but he played a big role. My brother grew up. My brother's 7 years younger than me, but he'd always be in the studio with me. So he was like a kid in middle school. And I got him backstage with like Joel Santana at a Dipset concert in the early 2000s. My brother had the coolest MySpace photos growing up because of like what I had given access to. You know, I was able to give him a lot of access to a lot of that stuff. So now my brother is in college, and my brother wants to be a music producer just like me again. But now my parents are kind of like, well, your brother's kind of like able to do it. So my parents weren't that apprehensive about it at this point. And so he's making music, and somehow it caught the attention of Rocky and Ferg. And my brother's like this kid named Tash P. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's like always doing tweets that kind of go viral or whatever. So he's really good at Twitter. He's got like 14,000 followers, but like all like organically grown, like just making jokes all the time, going viral. So he makes this connection with Rocky and Ferg, connects me with them. And I tell Karmaloop, like, yo, we should do all their videos. So Karmaloop ends up doing a merchandising deal with them. I end up doing all their videos. Now Rocky's the biggest rapper at this time, all of a sudden. So I'm growing with them. So, like, that was a new era for me because the Pharrell thing was starting to fade out because Pharrell was in a different point of his life. Because for a long time I rode the Star Trek wave, the Pharrell wave. Right. So now Rocky and Ferg became these new guys that became like my new crew that I used to hang out with. And I still do. So that was a new phase in my career. Now I'm in this New York like renaissance that was happening, I think, in 2012. It was like That's Racist was coming out. A$AP Rocky, Bodega Bams, Flatbush Zombies, Joey Badass. And I am now in the mix with all those kids. Mm-hmm. So again, it's timing for me because it's 2012 and I have the opportunity to offer all those kids free videos. So I offered all of them free videos and they weren't going to say no because at this point I already had a portfolio. Right. I was already under a salary.
Right.
So like I took a full advantage of that. And so by then Diplo got big already. So I did Diplo's video, I did a Major Lazer video, all this stuff. So now I'm like getting to work again with like all these people that are like household names and stuff now. And that's kind of like the come up story really, man. Like 6 years go by, like of course I left Karma Loop when things were kind of getting crazy. And then I went to Fader. When I went to the Fader, that was because Joseph Patel, I don't know if you know Joseph Patel.
No.
So Joseph Patel was the first brown dude I ever saw in the industry. Like that did it. Like he had a show called My Blog. Huh?
Joseph Patel?
Yeah, Joseph Patel. Huh. Dude, legend. This guy.
Now I gotta find this guy.
Please, that's who you need to do a podcast with. Legend, bro. Like he executive produced and directed all these shows for MTV called My Blog back in the days. And so me and Joseph connected in the early 2000s when he came to Virginia to do an episode, and I hooked him up with Family and all these guys. So we were always friends, and we always stayed in touch. And so Joseph became the VP of content at Fader. And so then Joseph took me to Fader, when I left Karma Loop. But at Fader, that's when I realized, like, man, this 9-to-5 life really is taking a toll on me. And I was starting to get sick too. Like at this point, I was working myself to death and I was getting a lot of vertigo attacks. I remember doing a Mobb Deep video, and luckily right after they left, there was still a lot of shooting left. I passed out because I had vertigo. And I didn't know what was causing it. Like there was this entire phase in my life where I was panicking. I was like, damn, do I have a brain tumor or something? Like, what the fuck's going on? And I'm delaying it. I'm delaying getting an MRI because I'm scared to find out. When you like think you have something, you start looking up symptoms, and all of a sudden, all those symptoms like match.
Oh yeah, I've had cancer.
Extra paranoid.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was trying to like avoid that, and more I'd be on set and I'm passing out. I did a Pusha T video. Again, I had vertigo and I passed out. But I think I started realizing I think it was a lot of stress. It was stress, but I also realized I think I had this condition. It's like a positional vertigo. So I started realizing that because a lot of my stuff I used to film on my own. Before I could afford hiring a DP, I would just grab the camera myself. And I realized with the positional vertigo, if I'm in a certain position of filming, that's what would like bring it up. It was that combination with stress. So the vertigo thing was getting bad because of that. And I knew I couldn't work at the Fader because that was adding additional stress to my life. And my wife completely supported me. Like, here, I'm giving up having health insurance and all this stuff. And then I'm like, man, I got to get an MRI at this point. And so I get an MRI, it comes back clean. And so eventually I find out that it's positional. And so my wife completely supports me, like, yo, your health is everything. I don't really care about us having this steady income. Let's just build our production company. You did it before, like with your friend, like I can help you. My wife kind of like went from like, she was going to college at the time to get her master's for accounting and said, I'm going to stop going to college. I want to be your business partner. So like she started producing my videos. Here's a person that has no idea about video stuff, became like my best producer ever. Because it's my wife. She cares about what I want more than anybody else. But my wife was so good at it that she just knew where to like save money, dude. She's super frugal. It comes in handy if you have a producer.
Right.
Like we always have like this stereotype for these people from a certain area in Bangladesh called Chittagong. So, Chittagong people know how to like make $1. They know how to save money. And we'd always joke about it because she's from there. Like, see,
Gujarati people.
Yeah,
exactly. My mom's from there, man. She
is.
Cheap.
So isn't that like a stereotype? That they're like super cheap. And they know how to like make money. So it's funny. I always joke her about that because anytime like, she's not gonna like be so cheap that she's gonna like cut corners for what's gonna affect the video, but she does know how to like make money and all this. So like here I was like, I left a 6-figure salary job at the Fader. Now I'm back to like starting my own business. I'm scared. I'm like, dude, I gotta make every phone call I got. Like, tell everybody I'm a free agent. So I called Rocky, still doing videos with Rocky, but through my own production company. And somehow, man, like the work still kept coming in even after I left Fader, and that's been a blessing. Like after I left Fader, Mark Ronson had just released Uptown Funk, and he hit me up to do his video for a second single. And so like, my wife and I like grew our business to a point where we had to leave our 1-bedroom apartment in Jackson Heights. We decided to move to Jersey. So we moved to Jersey like in 2017 as like freelancers that still own a small production company. And I think what's cool about our production company that I never really thought about, never occurred to me, it's like my co-producer and my other producer that works with me, my wife is Black, this kid Bobby Wiggins from Virginia Beach. My stylist is Black. My editor is Black. My production coordinator is Mexican. My DP, depending on the day, could be white, Black. But I'm starting to realize, like, shit, is our shit not like these other production companies? It never hit me. And one day, one of my friends pulled me aside, is like, yo, man, you got a lot of diversity in your company. Is like, I was like, dude, that's not by design. It's just, I didn't even think about it. Right. It's just like, which then started making me realize, I'm like, it's complete bullshit when these companies say it's hard to do a diversity hire. It's so hard to find, other minorities or whatever that are in this. Complete bullshit. I don't think people are even trying, because I didn't have to try. It's literally just working with my friends that happen to be minorities, And I don't discriminate either. I'm not going to be like, oh, you're white, I'm not hiring you. No, like my DP, John Carr, is this white dude. And like, my editor who no longer edits for me as much because he became this amazing director, Omar Jones. Like he hit me up too. I was like, bro, your set is different. Like, I was like, oh shit. It didn't really hit me till recently. I started thinking, And so I made a post. I know everybody was doing the whole black square post. I'm like, fuck it. If I do post one of these, I need to really talk about, like, after we're done talking about all these issues, what are we going to do about it personally? Like, are we going to actually just post a black square and like, I did my part? Or are we actually going to change the way we do business? So I brought up the thing about like, yo, man, like everybody needs to get hired because not everybody is going to have the same privilege I did, of having parents that were at a certain point, at the most important point of my life, was able to provide me enough shelter to be able to work for free and shit. Not everybody's going to have that. And so it does bring up a good point too, that, like a lot of kids that were my interns that said, yo, I had so many other internships, wouldn't even take them in. And I took them in and they're now like producers and things like that now, or directors. Mm-hmm. And so reflecting back, man, it's been a heavy year for me because all you get to do is just kind of sit back and think. So when I was writing my script with one of my best friends, it was important because he was Black growing up in Virginia and had a different perspective than I did. So I made him my co-writer, not just because it was like a story that involves, Black culture, but also because we grew up together, so we know each other's humor. But I thought about it. I was like, shit, man, I think that is important too, right? Like being able to tell these stories and also bringing my friend never wrote a professional script in his life, and I don't even know if our script is good, but I know that we wrote with our hearts and like what we grew up with, and he's got a unique perspective too, and just, man, this whole coronavirus shit had me thinking so much, because I took a 3-month break in 2019 because I made the most money I ever made. 2019 was a rough year for me, not financially, because I'm not trying to flex, but like I made millions in that year. Like I bought my like dream sports car or whatever, like, bought a fucking i8, did all this shit. But it was a rough year for me because my wife had a miscarriage. What I was always afraid about myself, she ended up getting diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? It's like nothing is ever right in my life, because it's just like I'm getting the most business I've ever gotten. I always talked about, I want to get more commercials. Like I did enough music videos where the budgets or whatever, but these commercials we were doing were like $250,000 budgets each. So like we did like 4 or 5 spots last year for the New York Knicks, making the most money I ever made, working with Adidas, all these big brands. But I wasn't happy. And I wasn't happy because of what was going through me personally, And I was like, man, 2020 is going to be so much better, hopefully. And so I took a 3-month break because of what me and my wife went through. We went to Bangladesh, sort of like really look at things, and it inspired me as well. I always like going back to Bangladesh because the reality of how fucked up capitalism can be hits you, Here I am also, I've made a lot of money, and I've been tone deaf to certain things too, like about that, let's get rich, that mentality. It's just so many things. I just had so much to talk about and think about. I started making phone calls to my friends again. Like I lost mad weight because I was walking and talking, and I didn't realize I was getting my 10,000 steps in because I was talking so much more on the phone. So it's been a crazy fucking year so far, man. Like I went from a year that financially in the books looks great, but I was like struggling personally. But this year, as weird as it sounds, I feel much more healthy emotionally with all the fucked up emotions that are happening, because it gave me time to sit down and think and reflect and what we could do to be better people in the future. Yeah. I'm not saying we needed it, but I kind of needed it,
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think America, hopefully the people who have that same mentality, like we need this, are appreciating the time off, just like reflecting what really matters and stuff.
Yeah. Like how have you guys been? I'm sure you've talked about it in 50 other podcasts, but like, I wrote a script. I wrote an entire script with one of my best friends. He quarantined with me. Yeah. One of my best friends from high school, Devin Jackson. We used this time to say, let's write something we've been putting off for a while, because all this shit that I lived needed to be on paper. So we wrote about, I'll tell you a little bit about the movie. We wrote about the time when my best friend, Devin, had never been to any of my video shoots. Like he's like getting his master's or something. So he's still going to college. But one time I invited him to go to a video shoot. And that one time I invited him, it was to go to a video shoot. We drove out to Chicago to do a video for Big Man's son, Pharrell. And it got shot up. And so we wrote about that instance. Fictionalized a lot of it, but it was a powerful moment for us because we survived. Nobody got hurt. But I was like, man, this shit is stranger than fiction. We got to put it all in the paper. So like, that's what I did, Like I wrote this movie. I don't know. I'm not a professional writer. I write treatments, but I've never written a movie. But I finally, and I'd love to send it to you, man. Like,
I'll check it out for sure, man. Let's take a look.
And you, and maybe even maybe all of us could get involved somehow. I don't know if you think it's, something we could all.
I'm sure. Obviously, I'm a fan of yours, and we've talked for a while now. So it's, I'm happy to take a look, and hopefully we can do some shit together.
Yeah.
Asif and I, we both got to hop soon. I got to go back to Jersey to pick up a bike. I'm on my
motorcycle.
No. My dad, from working at his liquor store, gets like wild merchandise. And I was home last week, and he came home with. I have this joke in my stand-up set about having a Corona bicycle growing up, and it's true. I had like fixed speed Corona bike that he brought home a few years ago. But he came home like last week with like a 7-speed like racing bicycle made by Corona. So I gotta go pick that up. I've been trying to enhance, like you were saying, just like use the time to be productive in every facet of my life. And I've written a bunch of stuff, but also trying to get a lot healthier and shit.
Man. Seriously.
But yeah, man, I hope your wife is doing well.
I felt like I was just all over the place.
No, man, I love a podcast where the guest does most of the work. It's just here to
I have a lot to say.
Yeah, no, it's great, man. I mean, you've been cooped up for a couple of months. I'm sure you had a lot to let out.
Yeah, dude, that's what it was.
Well,
how's your wife? Is she good?
Yeah, she's doing.
She's
all
much
right.
better now. It's a bummer subject, but she gets her X-rays done every 6 months, so it hasn't grown, and but it's not a malignant tumor either, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
We don't know. We just got to take it one step at a time. But the best thing we could do is de-stress our life, and that's what we've been doing. We've been living a life where it's a lot less stress, and just really investing more towards things we're passionate about. Like this movie, and things like that. And I'm hoping that I'm meeting guys like you. I hope we could get over all this and we could all hang out.
For sure, brother.
Live life again.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be sooner than you think.
Hopefully, man.
Yeah, man. All right, brother. Thank you. Where can we find? You got like a portfolio on YouTube or?
Yeah.
Send me a link.
I think the easiest way is Instagram at SHOMI PATWARY. SHOMI PATWARY. So if you do the at Shomi Patwary, you'll find me on Twitter or Instagram, and both of those pages have a link to my website.
Awesome. Dope, man. We'll check it out.
Thank you again, man.
Thank you, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Later, guys.
Peace, brother.
See you guys.
Be well.
Thank you, man.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Check us out. I'm at Finding Nimesh. This is at Everybody Loves Mansi. Shomi's at Shomi Patwary. You will see it right there. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.